To learn more about earning college credits with study hall courses, go to gostudyhall.com or click the link in the description. In November 2022, disaster struck. Well, for everyone trying to get tickets to Taylor Swift's Eras Tour on Ticketmaster, that is. Hours of waiting online, frozen queues, getting kicked out of line when the website kept crashing, only for thousands to end up without a ticket despite being invited by Ticketmaster to a special presale. Not only did public outrage spark a lawsuit, it even led to Ticketmaster being questioned by the Senate Judiciary Committee. Hell hath no fury like a Swiftie scorned. And you might think Congress must have better things to do than looking into ticket sales, but there are actually good reasons for Congress getting involved, like guarding against monopolies and preventing companies from taking advantage of Swifties and other consumers. But at the same time, every minute the government spends investigating Ticketmaster is less time they have to keep an eye on their own employees, and that can raise some questions. As DC Comics reminds us, who watches the Watchmen? I hope Chris is watching. That was a good reference. Hi, I'm Carmela Boykin, and this is Study Hall, Power and Politics in U.S. Government. As we talked about in our episode about bureaucracy, the government is supported by millions of bureaucrats who work in more than 400 federal government agencies. This includes everything from the U.S. Postal Service to the National Archives and offices like Food Safety and Inspection Service. And most of these federal employees are just people. They're not elected officials who are supposed to listen to what constituents want. And since they're not elected, their jobs are nonpartisan, and they can stick around for years, from administration to administration, getting really good at their jobs and gaining a lot of specialized knowledge, just like in any other job. They're a lot like Swifties, actually, sticking around era after era, gaining specialized knowledge that helps them pick out the tiniest Easter eggs about the next album. But for years, conspiracy aficionados have complained about fake PR relationships, Gaylor, hiding in suitcases to avoid paparazzi. Wait, what are you talking about? Oh yeah, the so-called deep state. The deep state is an alleged network of government agencies, non-elected government officials, and private businesses that are secretly working to control the government and implement policy. While the concept is decades old, the phrase started gaining traction during Donald Trump's first presidential campaign and was promoted by people like Steve Bannon. According to Donald Trump, the deep state network conspired against his administration and questioned his decisions in order to undermine his power and destroy his reputation. But there's no evidence to support any of these claims. There were instances where high-ranking officials said, "I'm the problem, it's me," and admitted to delaying Trump's directives. They tried to talk him out of them or steer him in a different direction because they felt his order was against the country's best interests, unworkable or illegal. But that's not exactly a conspiracy. These are really examples of the delegation problems that can happen when someone given a task doesn't want to or can't do it. And delegation problems, which are a natural part of any massive organization, on top of Trump's claims, has caused a lot of his supporters to be suspicious of the intricacies of government bureaucracy and how the government is monitored. But the government does have systems in place to monitor the bureaucracy and make sure it's working as intended, because they also want to make sure the bureaucracy isn't going rogue. For example, Congress has a few ways of overseeing the federal bureaucracy. The most powerful is the Government Accountability Office, or GAO. Nicknamed the Congressional Watchdog, the GAO is an independent and nonpartisan agency that investigates, evaluates, and audits all government agencies. It's a job that's about as important as Tree Paynes. That's Taylor Swift's publicist, by the way. The head of the GAO is the Comptroller General. A bipartisan committee of leaders from both congressional chambers nominates people for the job. The president then appoints one of them. The federal employees at the GAO produce hundreds of reports each year. Some are required by law, others are requested by Congress. The GAO even writes an annual performance and accountability report on itself. But there's no way that Congress can oversee every single rule or regulation set by bureaucratic agencies. There are just too many people doing too many things. So Congress might not know right away if an agency isn't following the rules, or if a proposed rule has negative consequences. But people paying attention to just that agency, like an interest group or swarm of frustrated Swifties trying to get tickets to one of the tours of the decade, might notice a problem. It might then try to work with the agency to fix the problem. In fact, Congress actually requires federal agencies to receive comments from the public before implementing most new rules. And if that doesn't work, the public can sound an alarm for Congress. That's how we get the phrase fire alarm oversight, which operates much like a real fire alarm does. These alarms can also come from within the federal bureaucracy. We call people who bring wrongdoing to the public view whistleblowers, or Regular citizens like you and me can sound the alarm if we find issues through two very important federal laws on governmental oversight. First, there's the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, which gives anyone the right to request government documents. The agency is then required to release that information unless there's an exemption, like for national security or foreign policy information, or internal personnel rules and personal private information and law enforcement information, trade secrets, and data about wells. And people request government documents a lot. In 2020, the government received 772,869 FOIA requests. And just saying, if you add up all those numbers and divide by 3, it's 13. So more than half of those requests went to just the Department of Homeland Security. But because there are so many, the government is not historically great at getting those requests processed. One request was pending for more than 25 years. The other law, the Government and Sunshine Act, gets its name from the saying that sunlight is the best disinfectant. The idea is that corruption lives in the shadows and in secrecy, and exposure to public view will get rid of it. Coincidentally, also Taylor Swift's approach to Scooter Braun. The act requires that meetings of bureaucratic agencies headed by a board or commission be public. There are some exceptions similar to FOIA, but for the most part, these meetings have to be publicly announced and open to public view. It's all about transparency, because if everything is out in the public, then corruption can be more or less kept out of our democracy, and no secret networks can develop. But it's not just Congress who's responsible for that. The president also oversees the bureaucracy in some important ways. The same way Taylor Swift knows what her fans are up to. It's not like all those Easter eggs are an accident. Not to mention, she can get them to do things like register to vote and watch football. The other method of oversight is called police patrol oversight. That's a more centralized system that continuously monitors agencies, like how the police conduct patrols. Fire alarm oversight is reactionary, but police patrol oversight is meant to be proactive. And yet again, it comes back to the money. Both Congress and the White House use the budget as a way to keep tabs on the different agencies. Creating the US budget is a huge undertaking because the budget is huge, like bigger than the budget for the Eras Tour huge. It starts with government agencies turning in a request to the White House and the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB. The OMB is an office within the executive branch, and it creates the president's proposed budget from all those agency requests. The president's budget gets submitted to Congress, which divides it up for the various committees to look at. The House and Senate then make their own versions of the budget, which has to be reconciled before going to the president for their signature. Congress holds committee hearings to discuss various parts of the budget with agency heads, and the White House checks to make sure that agency regulations work with the budget. And as they say, money talks. It can be a great incentive to do the right thing when your budget depends on it. There are also lots of ways the president and Congress have to work together to provide oversight and direct the actions of the federal bureaucracy, which can have a huge impact on if and how things get done, and whether elected officials can keep their campaign promises. Like when Joe Biden campaigned in the 2020 presidential election, one of his campaign promises was to find solutions for student debt relief. Student loans can be a huge problem for a lot of people. They can create financial inequality that can persist across generations, hamper the economy by slowing business growth and consumer spending, except for tickets to the Eras Tour, and lower home ownership rates. They are also one reason why many people are getting married and starting families later in life, and they can have a huge impact on mental health. So it might not be a surprise that student loans were an important part of Biden's campaign. At first, Biden called on Congress to pass legislation for student loan forgiveness, but that didn't happen. So in August 2022, Biden announced a new plan. His Secretary of Education went back to a law originally passed in the early 2000s that, among other things, gave the secretary power to remove or change certain parts of financial assistance programs during periods of national emergency. Since the COVID-19 pandemic was a national emergency, they planned to use the law to cancel $10,000 of student debt for many borrowers. But Congress can also step in and pass laws to rein in what the federal bureaucracy does. The bureaucracy has to follow the law after all. So Congress tried to pass legislation to overrule the Department of Education, but Biden vetoed that bill. Ooh, look what you made him do. The whole thing also sparked a lawsuit, and in June 2023, the Supreme Court ruled that the Secretary of Education could not do what he wanted to do, and Biden's plan was stopped. The Supreme Court's ruling hasn't stopped Biden from pledging to follow through with his campaign promise, and he's been working with his administration on other solutions for debt relief. Biden's version, which shows that no matter your position or role in the government, you have to work within the system and boundaries of your allotted powers. And while it may seem like there are plenty of political strategies and masterminds involved, the boundaries are there, so no one's going rogue. Trust is the basis of democracy, but many people have begun to lose trust, not just in the individuals who run the government, but in how the government works, or doesn't work, for them. And a lack of trust can breed skepticism, suspicion, and bad blood. And when you don't have trust, it could easily lead to believing a conspiracy about federal bureaucracy, or traveling in a suitcase. But even if it feels like there must be some explanation behind the inefficiency of the government, maybe the system is really working all too well. All the slow-moving, complex layers of agencies and bureaucrats and elected officials are intended to make it so they all have to find ways to work together, and no one group or person has too much power. Except Taylor Swift. She's basically the man. If you're enjoying Study Hall Power and Politics in US Government and are interested in taking an online course and earning college credit, go to gostudyhall.com or click the button to learn more. Thanks for watching. See you next time.